Hello, I'm Howard Lau. I'm 17 and I'm turning 18 this year. I'm a recreational pilot, and this is FSX Road to Recreational Pilot. In this series, I aim to assist flight simmers better understand flying and use flight sim as a training tool. Welcome to episode 5, briefing portion, stall and spin awareness. In this lesson, we aim to identify symptoms of an aerodynamic stall. We aim to recover from aerodynamic stalls in different configurations, to gain awareness of an impending spin, and to gain confidence during flying the aircraft at high angle of attack. So what is an aerodynamic stall? Well, unlike a car, your engine doesn't stop. An aerodynamic stall is when the aerodynamic angle of attack of a wing exceeds the critical angle, which is 15 degrees in most aircraft, which causes lift to be reduced. This is a diagram as shown here. At low angle of attack and medium angle of attack, the airflow over and under the wing, the airflow over the wing is still laminar. However, when the angle of attack exceeds 15 degrees, as in this case it says excessive angle of attack, the airflow is broken, and therefore not enough lift is produced to sustain the aircraft weight. There are some common misconceptions that I would like to debunk before we go any further. A lot of people think that stalls only occur at slow speed. However, speed is not what defines a stall. Uh, on the pilot operating handbook of every aircraft, there is a flaps up and flaps down stall speed. However, it is given that you are at maximum takeoff weight and you are at straight and level flight. Um, it is worth noting that load factor actually increases stall speed. So in a turn, you can imagine stall speed to be increased. And also, the second misconception is a lot of young student pilots, such as myself, I used to believe this, is some people say that the wing doesn't produce any lift during stall. However, that's not true because the wing still does produce lift as we are still moving forward. However, it's just not sufficient lift to counter the force of weight. However, before any stall, we have to do a pre-stall checklist. And the pre-stall checklist is an acronym of HASEL, HASELL. So the first thing you need to check is that you have sufficient height. So at least 4,000 feet above ground level as a baseline. You want to be recovered by about 3,000 feet. Airframe, you want to make sure that the doors and windows are closed, and you also want to review your stall configuration, so whether or not you are doing a power off stall or power on stall with flaps or without flaps. And third, you want to make sure that your seatbelts are on and no loose articles are found in the cockpit. And next, you need to check the engine that the oil temperatures and pressures are in the green, and the mixture is set to full rich. And the second last point, you need to make sure that your location is suitable. So you should be over an unpopulated area. And also you need to do a lookout, which is a lookout turn. Is usually in Australia we teach a left-hand 360-degree clearing turn. And if you are doing multiple stalls in one lesson, you would do one more pre-stall check before every stall. However, after the first pre-stall check, the subsequent pre-stall checks can be abbreviated to HELL, HELL. So you have to check the height to be at least 4,000 feet AGL, engine, oil T's and P's in the green, lookout and do a 90-degree left-hand turn instead. And once again, location should be over an unpopulated area. There are several symptoms. There are 5 symptoms to a stall. The first symptom is airframe buffeting. Not as much on high-wing aircraft, however, on low-wing aircraft it is pretty obvious. And also, given that you're stalling straight and level and you're doing it intentionally, the airspeed should be decreasing and low, and also the nose-high attitude should be pretty high. However, remember, a stall can occur at any pitch attitude. And also, if your aircraft is equipped with a stall horn, the stall horn will start sounding. However, it is to be noted that a stall horn sounds usually 5 to 10 knots before a stall, so chances are you're not fully stalled yet. And also your control surfaces will be very unresponsive because of the reduced airflow over the wing. The first stall that we want to cover is the power off clean clean configuration stall. So this stall is executed at power to idle, and clean configuration means there's no flaps. And the entry is not that important because when you're examined on the recovery. So entry, there are plenty of ways to enter a stall. It doesn't matter, but as long as you do what a stall does, you're fine. So basically, this is what I do. I go power to idle, hold the altitude with increasing pitch, and wait until full elevator pressure is applied because you want to stall the aircraft fully. And then the nose will break, and that's called the break point. And then that means the nose will fall even though you have full elevator pressure. To recover, it is actually pretty simple. You should reduce back pressure to announce the nose to drop below horizon. And a common mistake for students is that you end up pushing forward, and that means you're in a very steep nosedive, and it's completely excessive because you don't need it. You just reduce the back pressure enough to reduce the angle of attack below the critical angle. And after that, you are going to gradually apply throttle to full to reduce height loss. And it's also worth noting that you need right rudder with it, especially since you are at a very low speed. And then you will allow the airspeed to increase and then gradually recover out of the dive. And this is a dark spot for people to enter something called the secondary stall if you pitch up too quickly. The second stall that you would do is a power off landing configuration stall, and this actually simulates you coming into land and then inadvertently pulling the power back and then pitching up too excessively. Once again, entry is not that important. However, this is what I usually do. Power goes to idle. You hold the altitude with increasing pitch in order to let the speed bleed off, and then when the speed is within the wide arc, you can lower the flaps to full, and then you just basically once again you hold the elevator until you are applying all the elevator, and then the nose would break and then fall. And it is worth noting that in a landing configuration there can be a slight wing drop. And to recover, you simply reduce the back pressure to allow the nose to drop below the horizon, and also throttle goes to full to reduce height loss. And you should allow the airspeed to increase. However, with all the flaps, there's a lot of drag. So immediately raise the first stage of flaps. And then after the airspeed has increased and you are climbing, you should gradually raise the last two stages of flaps. And it is worth noting that you shouldn't use any aileron input at all during a stall. And if you have a wing drop, use rudder instead, because the ailerons would basically cause the stall to be unbalanced, and therefore you go into an aggravated stall spin scenario. And second point, if you have a wing drop, you use the rudder to pick up the drop wing. And the last configuration is a power on approach configuration stall. So basically this simulates you being on approach and you inadvertently pitching up with power on. And so to enter, power goes to 1500 RPM instead, and it stays there. And then flaps go to full inside wide arc. And then you begin your descent as if you were approaching. So initially set the approach attitude, and then slowly pull up gently until the nose breaks. And because of the power, expect a higher pitch attitude. So you can be pitched up quite a bit. And the recovery is identical to a power off landing configuration stall. So that's it for this briefing segment. It's a short segment, and hopefully I'll be able to get the flight portion up maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. So it's going to be a short flight as well. So most importantly, have fun and fly safe.